Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SmackDown Double Down. I am your host, Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com. I'm joined by Robert DeFelice today. Robert, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. We got some positives, we got some negatives, but a lot of interesting positives and a whole lot of WrestleMania announcements. Colin.
Yeah, I mean, WrestleMania is taking shape, as you would hope it would. It's right around the corner now. It's hard to believe it's already the end of March here, and WrestleMania is April 10th. So, um, yeah, we got as we've been talking about let's not even bury the lead here. We get the triple threats happening. It's going to be Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, and Edge, albeit in a way that I did not expect it to go. At least if I compare it to like where I stood a month ago. I did not expect Edge to be a borderline or not even borderline heel at this point, but he is, or at least very kind of blurring blurring those lines. But I'm still excited about it. Like I said, I wanted to see this kind of go a different way, but I'm glad we're gonna get it because at first, I think Robert, you may have mentioned like last week. They could have potentially done like a night one, night two kind of thing
They
where you
pitched
have,
it.
yeah, they did. They did. They
I,
brought up on the show last night, and uh, could have happened, but it didn't. Instead, we're going to get that triple threat match. How do you think about how they went about this last night?
I thought it was one of the best things I've seen all year.
Wow.
This was so much fun to watch. Now, I'll bury the lead here. You know, Edge is my favorite wrestler, heel Edge in particular. So it felt good because he was going down a very bland road
Fair
with
enough.
like, I'm in your head, and you know, like, oh, you're scared of me, and I wasn't buying it. And the minute you plug in Daniel Bryan, and now you have evil, can't help himself, sinister, vindictive, manipulative Edge going to Roman and saying, listen here, stroke boy, you got the stroke? I need you to stop this because I'll just pin him. And then you're shit out of luck anyway. And it's like, that's good. I do see some comments here about Daniel Bryan basically crying his way into the match. I saw a lot on social media with people complaining about, oh, well, Roman's a heel, Edge is a heel, and Bryan's kind of bullying his way into the match. I don't know how to feel about anybody here. Here's how I feel about it. There are three guys who just 2 years ago, like all of them at some point had to stop wrestling. So it's so cool that they all are, and they should all be, scratching and clawing their way to this title. The only thing I wish, and this is a very minor detail, this is just me, wish it was the WWE title because it has the lineage and the history behind it that makes it more desirable. But I think that this was very good.
This was very good, and we are getting a lot of comments because this is a big thing. I mean, this is, as you just said, Robert, a triple threat match between three guys that just a short time ago were not wrestling ever, and now they're all back in this very prominent spot. Ben Milligan saying the show was great last night, and then he says that he thinks Bryan doesn't know shot at the title, and that's the thing. Like you could say that he bullied, I guess, quote unquote, bullied his way into the match, but that's kind of like doing something that may be a little untraditional for a babyface, where it's like you're gonna stand up. I guess in a way he stood up for himself, and that's not complaining or crying or whatever or bullying. He had a very valid complaint that Edge essentially cost him the match at Fastlane. Roman did tap out, so he did deserve another shot, one-on-one or in this triple threat match, and he got it, and he deserved it. I mean, storyline wise, to me, it makes perfect narrative sense. It would have made less sense if they had said, "No, Downey, you're not going to get this match." And I do think that he'll make the match even better than it would have been otherwise. And that's something that Belair is saying here. Bryan's going to make that better. I mean, we've been saying for a couple weeks now. Edge Roman would have been very good. But now you put Daniel Bryan in there, especially the way that we've seen it go, because they already had kind of been teasing this more sinister or maybe desperate even Edge. I think it's a really cool story. I mean, now we're seeing Thomas Blair saying Edge last night was the best you've seen in years. He showed he can still take it to another level. And Robert, I do want to point out something you said. You said that Edge was being pretty bland, and I think that's fair. But at the same time, I don't want to keep complaining about it. It's just the Edge has been so good as a face to me at least since he's come back that I would kind of wish we got to see a little more of that because now I'm sitting here like I don't know how we can essentially go back, right? Like because now we were going down this heelish road, and now I don't know if we're gonna get that back. But at the same time, Nando, like other people in the comments, saying it was good to see the old Edge back because he is, kind of a tradition, like that's kind of what he's best known for, right? The Edge, the ultimate opportunist, the guy that's gonna do. He's gonna, I won't say cut corners, but he's looking out for number one, and that's been his kind of his mo for the better part of his career. And I think it is fair to say that by and large, he has done better as a heel. At least found like I think he may even play that role better, even though I did enjoy him as a face. So I think it's a win.
I think Daniel Bryan was one of the only people who could have turned Edge heel right now because we're still living in a world where it's just cool to see Edge wrestle. Every time I hear that music and to see him walking to the ring, it's like it's weird that this is just normal again. So I like it. I think if we apply, and I tweeted this out, if we apply a little bit of the AEW logic of heels and baby faces are antiquated and they're just people, I think we'll get through this a lot easier and we can worry about Edge fighting Seth Rollins, which he should do at SummerSlam. It'll happen easier if you just acknowledge that, hey, they're all people who are just desperate to be at the top of their industry. And I like the nugget of 10 years to the day. That really sticks out with me. I did not know that until he said it, and it made me want to see him win it more.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's going to be a very good match on Sunday, April 11th. At this point, it's the number one match I'm looking forward to.
I mean, I'll say so. I mean, there are a lot of. I mean, this card is taking shape. There's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to. But this match definitely kind of is at the top of my list, just for all things we've been saying. You've got Edge, you've got Roman Reigns, who's been killing it. So you've got Daniel Bryan, as something he's been saying lately could be his last WrestleMania, or at the very least, he's kind of winding down at the very least. And you just alluded to it, Robert, and Nando in the comments as well, saying these are three guys that, for their own reasons, are all very desperate to be the champion, to be at the top right now. And of course, only one man can really be in that position. So it sets up for this very dynamic and, I guess, combustible situation. I think it's really exciting. I mean, we've been talking for weeks now. It's hard to see Roman losing, although now you put Daniel Bryan at a loss. It'd be fantastic to see Edge win. You just said, 10 years to the day. That's a great story, even if we are going in this path where it's less about the hero's triumphant return and more about just the guy that's, as you said, a person that's trying to get back what he lost. I do think that's you point. I saw your tweet last night, Robert, but it's a fair criticism. Like a lot of times, AEW will be like, oh, there's it's all gray area. There's no baby faces and heels, and then when it feels like WWE's doing the same thing, there's this inherent disconnect because then a lot of the time they don't necessarily do that. That their stories are still very conventional in that sense. And now they're doing something a little more unusual by having Edge, not necessarily be a full-fledged heel, but doing these things that you wouldn't expect to see from babyface. So it is interesting. Yet another kind of example of a double standard in a way, where it's like AEW versus WWE, and there's some, inherent bias, or not bias, but it is interesting to see that disconnect of, I guess, expectation in a way. Overall, though, I think this will be really good. And we've still got, I think, at least 2 weeks at this point. So there's still a lot more we can do here to make the story even more exciting. Nando in the comments saying that these three guys, because they are who they are, they do make the title mean something. And that's something we've seen WWE struggle to do for a while. Whether it's for the Universal title, I think the WWE title has been an exception because Drew McIntyre had a good reign. Now Bobby Lashley's got it. But for the Universal title, yeah, you look back, let's call it a year ago, you had, I guess, The Fiend had it, then Goldberg had it, and then we had the Braun Strowman reign. but for a pretty good, unfortunate stretch there, the title was pretty lackluster. Now Roman's really elevated it, and now you bring in Edge and Daniel Bryan. That's a really good way to make this title, feel and at least in some ways, perhaps even more important than the WWE title. Just based on kind of how what they're bringing to the table here in the storyline, or at the very least narrowing the gap. Robert, you just said, wishing it was the WWE title because that's one that matters more inherently because that's the history. But there's something to say that this storyline right now is bringing that prestige and the legacy up in a way.
Like, there's 11 matches announced for this card so far. And of these 11, this triple threat is the one match that feels, I don't know, man, anybody can win. Because a lot of these matches are basically a given. And this one feels like it's up in the air, and that matters to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really always look for as a fan, at least speaking for myself. One of my probably biggest pet peeves is kind of going into a show and having the majority, if not all, the matches feel very predictable. And especially in the main event scene, I want unpredictability. I want to be kind of on the edge of my seat. And I look at this match, and I genuinely don't know who could win. I mean, I think it probably comes down to Edge and Roman. Yet hey, crazier things have happened, and then for another world title reign for Dan Bryan here.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely a valid possibility. I don't think that should be overlooked. Especially if you look at just again this narrative we've been seeing lately, where he's saying, I don't know what my future holds. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this. Definitely a guy that deserves one last run if this is it. And what better way than to win at WrestleMania? Of course, the inherent comparison here, as Mike Gordon in the comments is saying, you look back at WrestleMania 30, like a time when Daniel Bryan entered that night and pretty much blazed his own trail and made history. He beat Triple H, then he beat Batista and Randy Orton. Could see something kind of similar here where he just defies the odds, and I think that'd be pretty cool. At the same time, be very happy to see an Edge win, and if Roman wins, then obviously that's a huge notch in his belt. Yeah, absolutely though. This match really, at least at this point, and I'll say it, I don't see it necessarily even changing. I think this match will be kind of the one to watch across both nights of WrestleMania. And if it's
don't worry, Sasha Banks and Bianca fans, we'll get there.
Yeah, I know that's a good transition here. Is finally last night we got a little actual feud building here, right?
Yeah, imagine that. No Reginald.
No Reginald, no nonsense, no nothing. Just good old fashioned, two superstars here. They don't like each other anymore. They're clearly, the tension's there. Now we're starting to up the ante here. Bianca slapped Sasha Banks in the face. And then she went back and to take care of business, and she beat Natalia. And then Sasha beat Bianca down after the match. So clearly, there's a lot of there's already some bad blood here. Now we're taken to that next level. Finally, that we've been saying for weeks now. It's taken way too long to get here. Robert, you've been saying every single week they should have just kind of framed this the same way they had done years ago for The Rock and Brock Lesnar. But even if you don't want to do that, at the very least, we've been begging them to just do a little more direct story building here. Finally, we're getting it. And as I just said about this triple threat match, now we're going to have, I think, at least 2 weeks where we can actually kind of, narrow the focus to now in this case, the two women that very well could main event, or if not, obviously one of the most featured matches of WrestleMania. So that's definitely a relief in my book. I mean, I think you probably used to last week. A lot of the time with these matches, it feels like, at least if we're trying to look at WWE's perspective, they don't necessarily care how they get there because they know the match will be good. But no, now that it is kind of we're on the home stretch here, we do want to see some good storytelling, some good those good content, and now we're actually getting to see some actual feud. So I'm happy with it. Basically Bianca said, I think before this all happened on the show on Friday, she wanted to be the bigger person, so she could strike back at Sasha at Fastlane. But now obviously that's kind of out the window. So I'm excited. Now we've got these two rivals that are pretty much actually enemies here rather than just kind of a slow burn. I'm happy with it.
I liked the build, if only because what we were being presented before was atrocious. I do think, again, you could stand to focus a little bit on the training aspect, but that ship has sailed clearly. I think now we're gonna get to the point where it'll be a fun build, and like I've said since day one, nobody's gonna care once that match is in the ring. And I could say even more now, even if it's good, nobody will care unless it's the last match to go on the second night. And I guess it remains to be seen.
I'm blanking at the moment. What they announced? So I guess the triple threat matches for
It's
night
or
2.
I guess the first night. I might have said the second night. The first night will have this match and have the WWE Championship between Drew and Lash. And I don't know. I think there's a good chance that this doesn't headline. And if it doesn't, people are going to be upset about it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I said it last week though. We've seen WWE experiment with kind of the card layout. I could very well see them putting the WWE title match first. They did that at WrestleMania 35 before the Lynch, Rousey, and Flair triple threat match for the main event. Could very well do that here, given everything about this Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks match. Certainly a match that deserves that spot. Depending how these next 2 weeks go, roughly 2 weeks, I don't necessarily. I mean, I don't know. It's the unfortunate thing about you look about over on Raw. Yeah, Lashley and McIntyre have history. They've been feuding for at least indirectly for a while, but that doesn't quite feel like this big WrestleMania match quite yet. At least at the level of Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, because of how much has gone into that at this point. But yeah, I mean, I'll be disappointed if Banks Blair doesn't main event. I'm not going to be like,
I think
in an uproar, but
like I tweeted this out as well yesterday. You follow me on Twitter. It's over in the lower third. I think the discourse of this whole WrestleMania thing is going to break down into, well, they didn't main event, or it was great because they did main event. If the match is crappy and they main event, nobody's going to care and everybody's going to be happy because it was a historic main event. It's frustrating for me because you have the organic chance to headline with something genuinely historic, and they deserve it, and they're great wrestlers. And if it doesn't happen, that's it. You're gonna lose it because you have live fans now, and they're just gonna flat out tell you they're gonna boo. They're gonna boo McIntyre twice as much if he wins because he main evented and he beat Lashley. It's gonna be a mess if they don't just put these two on last.
I think it's a fair point. And then I do, I will counter that by saying, again, because I've been saying, I think I said it last week as well, because this is the first show back with live fans, and at least at this point, the only one for the let's say the short-term future. The news broke that WWE does not plan to immediately start touring anytime soon. That had been like known for a while, but it was more like kind of confirmed recently. But because of that, because it's the return to live fans, and it will be a kind of across the 2 nights, kind of like the one chance to enjoy this a live show for however long it may be again. It's going to be very interesting to see how much of that dynamic will be present. Will fans kind of, for lack of a better word, hijack the show, or will it be more of just happy to be here and cheering and being a little more receptive to the things we get? Or both, right? Why not both? It could both things very well may happen, especially because it is a 2-night thing. Maybe one night will be, what I just said, happy to be there cheering. Another night might be kind of that might wear off, and then we might very well see kind of the more fans kind of taking control of the show and booing and whatever it may be. I think it'll be a very interesting dynamic to see unfold. But no, it's interesting because I don't necessarily know if I see Drew McIntyre in that role yet, where like he'd be the guy that gets booed. Although it's fair to say if he beats Lashley, then plenty of people will be upset about that.
Yeah. It's not that you're booing him; you're booing the decision making behind giving him the ball.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
I like this comment that's on screen, though, from a good buddy, James Espanto Fernando Taguay. What do you think if Saturday has both women's title matches and Sunday has both men's title matches? Well, that just makes all the sense in the world to me, because then you go, listen, the headliner will be the Royal Rumble winner, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, that should still be the case, but I think that there's this idea where it's like, well, Lashley deserves the main event too, and they have the prestigious belt. This is why you shouldn't try to book 4 world championship main events, because at any point in time, anyone can lay claim to it. Arguably there's a precedent for the Raw Women's Championship to headline. It won't do it this year because Rhea Ripley just showed up.
Right.
But the precedent is there. I think, again, merge the brands. There's a strong argument to be made from this one WrestleMania. Merge the brands. Women headline night 1, men headline night 2. You're done. That's it.
I mean, you say it like that, and it seems like a very simple solution. I don't. It's just one of those things where, like, we can say.
I understand why they don't. I'm just saying, like, stuff like this is why it makes more sense to do so. Or even if you do SmackDown WrestleMania night 1, Raw WrestleMania night, you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna split it like that, that's another option.
It's true. I mean, there are ways that, very easy, very like clean ways to kind of like get out of this jam, for lack of a better word. Like, whether it's, as Nando said, splitting up the title matches like that, or that idea of making it more brand defined. It just feels like the company's so set on integrating both brands and the gender divisions. Like, that's not the best way to put it, but integrating both sides of that. Even to a fault, right? Because now we are in a situation where it's like, technically, at the very least, let's say the 3 matches genuinely should be main event matches on some level, and then you factor in that the precedent for the Raw Women's title as well. You have 4 main event matches for, let's call it, 2 spots. There is something to say again, where how much does the placement on the card really matter, right? Like, at least for all 4 matches here.
But like that's, and you said you started watching in 08, right?
Yeah.
That's a very, so you started watching when they had enough going on where they were starting to make this mentality of, hey, spot on the card doesn't matter. I mean, I think 2011, Edge's last match actually was the first match on the card, and that's when they started we'll just open with main events. Yeah, nobody buys that shit. The issue is nobody buys that. Everybody knows the last match on the card is the one that you think matters most. Therefore, give it to these women because they deserve it. That only becomes an issue when you go, so does Drew and so does Lashley. It gets very tricky. I would not want to be the one formatting that card, is what I'm saying.
No, neither would I, right? Because at this point, it feels like no matter what, someone's going to get the short end of the stick. Someone's going to be, whether it's the opening match or, heaven forbid, stuck in the middle of the card. Not everyone.
Yeah, I think the opening match is better. Listen, open it up with Drew. It's night 1, right?
Yep.
Drew always said, I want to be the first person out the curtain welcoming these fans back. Open it up with Drew. Close it with the ladies. I think that is the best balance. And you can have Drew cut a passionate promo before or after. Hey, it was my honor to be the champion during the pandemic. I'm so happy to see you. And even though we won't be together for a long time yet, I'm glad that I was the one to welcome you back. That's the problem solved. That's what they should do.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, I'm like, that sounds like the best solution available here, and a very realistic one at that. Not even what we were just talking about a minute ago of dividing the title matches or focusing on the brand. Doing that, because Drew has said that. I remember that very interview, and Drew has been even not even necessarily intentionally, just for the fact that he was the WWE champion for the duration of the pandemic era, at least up to this point. There's a lot of validity to that, to having him cut that promo, welcome the fans back, be the guy literally kind of carrying that torch to kick off the show. That'd be a pretty darn cool image, and
I think
I
that's
hope
a
they do
great
that.
image, except for one thing.
What's that?
People love themselves some Lashley right now, but they're just in a jam, and that's why I say again, I would not want that job.
Yeah. And I guess, to be fair, you look at a guy like Bobby Lashley, finally getting that world title run. He's been doing great with it. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's going to walk out of WrestleMania with the title. I'd be surprised if he did. But at the same time, there's nothing too wrong with getting a W title match on WrestleMania, defending it, heading into the show as the champion, and then being set up hopefully for something just as good on the other side. I don't see them the WWE necessarily dropping his push entirely. Whatever it may be that comes next for him. And Nando in the comments here making a pretty interesting comment. The first match on Mania should be the one everyone wants, I guess, especially this WrestleMania. Because
for this one, maybe. For every other one, not so much.
Fair. I don't want to be the guys like, oh, they need to change, but it's just like, why can't we like change a little bit? Like it does sometimes feel like there's so much weight on the main event, and especially I look back to like just let's say before the pandemic era, you have pay-per-views that were they're usually like roughly 3 hours long, but like the 4-hour, 5-hour long shows. By the time the main event rolls around, like we're all tired, we're all exhausted, and like the matches often kind of suffer for that. Sometimes the first match exceeds the main event because it's the hot crowd, and even as a viewer, you're still like fresh. So I think there's something to be said for that. That's all.
The best example I can give of that is WrestleMania 2 years ago, where Rollins opened the show, the crowd was hot. Kofi was in the middle of the show, the crowd peaked.
Yep.
And I swear to God, the girls went on. They went on last. Congratulations. They went on at like midnight. And I can honestly say I was falling asleep because it was midnight.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, sometimes maybe, or at least I think there's a case to be made, that the main event isn't always the best spot. It may be the most important one in that traditional sense. But there's something said for that, where, just the way, maybe that's why it's a good thing the show will be 2 nights again this year. Say what you will about it, very least that fatigue factor of the one long like 7-hour show. I don't miss that. That's what I'll say. But let's pivot away from the main event stuff here, because we did get plenty of other clarification and building of the WrestleMania card here. We got 2 more matches that had been pretty fair to expect, but now they're official. And I guess let's start with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They're gonna face off, but not only that, Robert. Supposedly, we're gonna get Logan Paul on SmackDown.
I genuinely think we're gonna get Logan Paul on SmackDown. I know that everybody's hesitant about this. I genuinely think that they've talked to him. They're having a good run. You can say whatever you want about Logan Paul. You can say whatever you want about Jake Paul. You can say whatever you want about Bad Bunny. They're actually having relevant personalities, a part of this build for WrestleMania. And I think that is strong because, hey, we've seen a lot where WWE hasn't had relevant personalities, and this is a good sign for the company.
Yeah, I mean, this happened last night where like they made the announcement. Oh, it's Logan Paul's gonna be here. And Bad Bunny's an exception. I'm still very surprised that, in some ways, like I try to think about it from these celebrities' perspectives. Just the fact that this is the pandemic era, and there's nothing they can do about it. But I would think that as if I'm a celebrity kind of coming in here, that I'd want it to be in front of this arena full of fans. So and maybe that says something to WWE's appeal, the fact that they've got that massive audience anyway that is watching at home. I was just kind of caught off guard, like they're I don't know, in a way it's like, oh, they could have waited to WrestleMania to kind of bring Logan Paul in there, but hey, maybe they will anyway. Maybe this is a bait and switch and they're going to push it off. I don't know, but at least at this point, when you have Logan Paul on SmackDown next week, and again, as you just said, Robert, say will about him, it brings at least, if not eyes directly to the product, it puts WWE in the pop culture like news stream, in the mainstream, I should say, and that's a good thing. People that are relevant, people that are actually being talked about. And Bad Bunny as well.
I'm pretty sure they sold Bad Bunny on, hey, wrestle at WrestleMania, there'll be people there. And they sold him on that. Logan Paul's great. Even if it's like a Zoom appearance, I know those are lame, but like, hey, you're getting on SmackDown. They have that Logan Paul familiarity. He can always be there at other shows. It's a good news for WWE. It's a good spot.
Yeah. I do know that it generated plenty of flack last night, but if you look at it purely just from that buzz perspective and the classic saying, some publicity is better than no publicity, and publicity is a very good thing WrestleMania time. And as Nando was saying in the comments here, Logan Paul brings his followers with him. He's kind of got that proven success as a pay-per-view draw. And this is SmackDown, granted. He's a draw. I think that's kind of what it boils down to. For better or worse, he's going to generate some excitement, whether it's good or bad excitement. So there is something to be said for that. And otherwise, though, not to bury the headline with that, we're supposedly going to get Sami Zayn's documentary next week, at least in some capacity. And that's something I've been hoping that would be the case for a while, pretty much since this whole thing started. I don't know how that might go. Obviously, if it's like a trailer or something, just a little taste. I don't know. I think that could be fun. But
it is a trailer.
Yeah,
I think it'll be good. I think it'll be really good.
But beyond that, then the main thing here, at least for the wrestling aspect of it, we are going to get Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. Robert, that's something you've been calling for. I think you said that back in February, for crying out loud.
I said that from the minute the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view was over. Yeah. It's almost like I knew or something, but this makes the most sense to me. They're two guys who can go. The people will be into it. I almost wish this was less paranoid chicken shit heel Sami, because I want to see them go balls to the wall at WrestleMania. There's quite a few matches on the SmackDown side of things that have the potential to just go all out and be very enjoyable. That's at the top of the list.
Yeah, and we may be biased because we're a SmackDown show, but on paper right now, I'm looking at the SmackDown side of things.
I got news for you. I cover both programs for websites. I ain't biased. SmackDown's a much better program right now. It just is. I think you cover Raw, don't you?
I do. I was being cute. I do cover Raw, so I can.
Isn't it awful? Like SmackDown show side, no bullshit. Isn't Raw just trash right now? What is happening? I remember when Raw was can't miss television.
I mean, granted, I like SmackDown a lot more, and I've been able to say that since I started doing this show. For a hot second there, Raw actually got good. Where I liked the unpredictability with Miz and Lashley and everything, and now we've got McIntyre and Lashley. I think that'll be good. I'm as someone that has always enjoyed the Fiend and Bliss and Randy Orton stuff. I've enjoyed that, but overall though, SmackDown is much better. Now I'm looking at this WrestleMania card. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, two of the very best. So much history. Obviously, they have great chemistry. I fully expect that to be one of the best matches on the card. And now that was the one thing. Well, also now it's official. We're going to get Seth Rollins and Cesaro, two of the best wrestlers in the world.
Oh my God.
I fully expect them to steal the night that they're on. That's going to be a great match. Thankfully, it's actually been. They've had the story. They've actually gotten time to develop it. Whereas with Owens and Zayn, you're kind of more relying on that history. And that match feels more like a better version of, I think back to WrestleMania 35, AJ Styles and Randy Orton. They kind of threw it together. relied on the two guys, their star power, and that was it. At least with this, it's been drawn out a little bit, and now it's kicking up into high gear. But Rollins and Cesaro, they've been feuding for several weeks now. It's a good story about Cesaro finally kind of potentially breaking through that. I won't say glass ceiling, but breaking to that next level.
Cesaro's been there for 9 years. It's egregious that he's never had a singles match at WrestleMania. I don't know how many of these people get lumped into these multi-man scenarios. I'm glad Cesaro's getting this spot.
Me too.
And Rollins, second year in a row, he's going to have a major grudge match on the first night of Mania. I think they could steal it. Like, night one is going to be very hard to touch. I think Sami and Kevin are on night 2, and that might help. Yeah. But night 1 right now is looking a little better than night 2.
I mean, that is maybe one of the, if not drawbacks, one of the challenges of the 2-night manias, where like sometimes, I remember last year, I think night 1 felt like they couldn't top it. They had the Boneyard match. It was like, I don't know how they're gonna do it any better than that. Night 2, we had the Funhouse match. We had McIntyre's win. But and that's right now we're just talking about on paper, and we're seeing how the card's unfolding. But I think now we've been talking about how you set up the card. If you kind of split up the show stealing caliber matches on both nights, I think that's a recipe for success. You put on Rollins and Cesaro night 1. You put on Zayn Owens night 2. Pretty good solution there. But yeah, SmackDown here, you've got 4 amazingly talented wrestlers, and Owens, Zayn, Rollins, and Cesaro. Both matches I fully expect to be great. I really hope to see Cesaro actually win here, as he well should. Potentially, then he finally gets to face Roman, because I thought we'd get Cesaro and Roman at Fastlane months ago, and that didn't happen. And I guess there was the rumor about his contract status and whatnot. So hopefully this feud kind of, at least even in a short-term sense, will kind of push Cesaro up to that next level. So he obviously deserves it. Guy's been there for 9 years now. Has never had a single match WrestleMania, as you said, Robert. Crazy. He's immensely talented. Thankfully, Rollins here, he's going to hopefully get that rub from a guy that's been the guy that has been WWE and Universal Champion. Granted, it's worth pointing out, not a great look for Shinsuke Nakamura here, taking another loss for a guy that just called a month ago, or let's say 2 months ago, was looking like he could be kind of enjoying a career renaissance of sorts. I don't know what kind of his direction is after this, because now he's kind of become not even the third wheel, kind of like almost the sacrificial lamb in the story. And that's not great, especially if you're a fan of Nakamura from his NXT days, or even before that. But I'm, as a Cesaro fan, as a lifelong Cesaro fan, I'm very happy to see him in this spot. I fully expect him to win and put on a great match at WrestleMania. I think that would be good. So you look at those 2 matches we just pointed out, the card's still looking better and better. We've been saying for weeks now, the WrestleMania has felt lackluster. I think it's fair to say. Now, couple good weeks here after Fastlane, after this episode of SmackDown, it's looking pretty good. And I've been saying for a couple weeks, the tag team division's looking pretty darn good. We've got the Street Profits, the Dirty Dogs, the Mysterios, and American Alpha. They met and we'll talk about Biggie and Apollo as well. But at least let's stay on the good side of things. The tag division's looking pretty darn good, and we've been predicting for a little while now, we're probably going to get some multi-team match, and that yet another match that could very well be amazing, right? You've got the Street Profits, the Dirty, like all those teams are very talented, and I would expect the Street Profits to win the titles, if not for the Mysterios, probably, because I think but I think that'll be fun. I think grant the depth in terms of like number of teams still not there, but kind of pretty rapidly, SmackDown's tag division has kind of, gotten better. They've established these as pretty good duos, and you've got we went from having kind of the champions and challengers to now I could see them Mysterios as champions. I could see American Alpha as champions sooner rather than later. So I think that's cool to see. I mean, and I don't want to keep burying Raw here, but now with Raw, you've got the New Day and AJ Styles and Omos guys wrestling his first match. I mean,
I'll admit that's got my attention. If only because I think AJ's great. I think New Day's great. And Omos is, if nothing else, a spectacle.
yes.
That's got my attention. This SmackDown situation is fine. I would almost prefer a straight up tag match between the Mysterios and the Dirty Dogs. Not that the Street Profits deserve WrestleMania in front of a crowd. And I'll be honest, Alpha Academy, they're not. I don't feel it. They're good because, of course, they're good, but I don't feel it. I would almost rather the Mysterios beat the Dirty Dogs. They get that moment at WrestleMania in front of fans. Dominic's first match in front of fans, by the way. He hasn't wrestled in front of people.
Pretty crazy.
It's wild. I like the build to this. I like Ziggler and Mysterio in the ring. It reminded me of like when Ziggler had hope and Ray was still full time. Like,
yeah. Oh, that was a trip down memory lane. I'll tell you. Like two guys that they were there when I first started watching, and now they're still there more than 10 years later. And they're there on SmackDown last night. Two guys that are very good. So they obviously like they're just like SmackDown's full of guys that are pretty good bets to put on a good match any given night. And you put in Ziggler and Mysterio there. Obviously that happened. Mysterio did defeat Ziggler. And I think they're at the very least they use kind of allude to it, but you want to see the Dirty Dogs face Mysterios. So I think that's kind of like tentatively I expect to see that, and very likely seeing these other teams added to it. Because it's fair to question. I don't know with health and safety protocols. I don't know if we're going to get a battle royale or anything. So that tag team match is probably one of the better chances to throw out several superstars into the one match there to get them all on the card. Because that's something we do often see, and every year at WrestleMania, you want to get people on the card. It's a big show of the year, and that's an organic way to do it. So I'd be pretty happy to see that. I saw a tweet last night where it was like it was a picture of Otis carrying Mandy and missing the old days of Otis, and like, I said it when he turned heel, like they left money on the table with Otis.
They did. I mean, literally, they left the Money in the Bank briefcase on the table.
Yeah, right.
It's very odd what they did with Otis, but they were experimenting. Early pandemic, you had the celebrities singing Imagine. You had Otis with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Early pandemic was a weird time, everybody. Really,
and it still is.
It's very much is.
All this time later. But I mean, and I very much feel that the same way now as I do about the heel turn for Otis, and that it's been something. It's been different in. I can't say it's been bad. I can just say that I did prefer the way Otis used to be. But at the same time, Chad Gable, very, very talented. So I'm glad that he's getting the spot in this tag team division where when you do only have 4 legitimate teams, that when one of those 4 teams, then you've got a pretty prominent spot here. And presumably that will get a match on WrestleMania. So, I mean, I see that as a good thing. Another match on WrestleMania that we can now confirm, Biggie will face Apollo Cruz yet again.
I'm shocked that they're just running this back.
Yeah.
Very shocking, but it makes sense. One thing I'll say here, I like that we're getting a lot of singles matches. For a long time, it was easy to throw everybody into the blender and just, here, you're going to multi-man. I like that we're getting singles. I don't know who should win here. Apollo needs to win. Big E should win in front of people, though.
I know, right? I mean, I don't want to contradict about what I've been saying for weeks now, but if you're gonna run it back, you can't have Apollo lose again. Robert, you and I were talking about before Fastlane. Like, if Apollo kind of needs to win, he needed to win a Fastlane, he didn't get it, and it kind of came off like a botched ending as with a roll up. Now you're gonna run it back with Biggie and Apollo Crews, WrestleMania. Great for them. We're kind of on the precipice of where I felt about Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns here, where we're just kind of running this back and we're not getting a whole lot of additional progression for the storyline. I was saying about the other matches, thankfully we've got 2 more weeks to kind of build this story. But now we've got 2 more weeks for Biggie and Apollo Cruz. I'm like, I don't even know what they could do to really kind of add more to this here. But yeah, good for them. I mean, if right now we're looking at it, we've got the triple threat main event, presumably this tag team match, and I'll kind of bet that we'll get something similar for the women's tag team titles as well. That'll be a multi-team match, probably, possibly. But otherwise, yeah, it is a lot of singles matches. And as long as like WWE finds a way to kind of like make each one stand out, I think that's a very good thing. Sometimes I think the danger of having, a card full of singles matches, like it can get not repetitive, but you do hope for a little like variety. And granted, you're going to have a number of things to kind of shake it up, whether it's with the Bad Bunny match, managers or people at ringside, whatever it may be. But no, it is cool that there's that. We were just talking about what we were talking about earlier with the main event. That traditional like the value of a singles match on WrestleMania. I think that's a very good thing. I've been saying for a while now, like I want Biggie to like take that next level, just like Cesaro. I view him very much the same way. I don't know how. I mean, Robert, you said last week, like if he loses the title, then he could kind of step up even after the loss, and there's some truth to that. But at the same time, not a great look to lose, in this first.
No, you can't. He can't keep losing.
Yeah, neither one. Yeah, no, like several matches here are in this kind of situation where it's like neither person can really afford to lose, and they both pretty much need to win. I mean, I don't want to be dramatic, but like if Apollo loses WrestleMania, like I don't know how they're gonna save this character, because like it's a pretty traditional recipe where it's like you get either heel or face turn. You kind of need to like to win early on to kind of like establish it, and if you don't, then it's automatically kind of like this. It's got this aura of losing. I think that's pretty fair to say. I think it'll be good. I mean, obviously we've seen these guys face off several times lately. Good matches every given night. So that's not the issue here. It's just I think the running theme of today's show is that neither one of us, Robert or myself, wants to be the guy either formatting this card or deciding how it goes.
Oh no, absolutely not. And I'll go on record here. I think this is the last time they do 2 nights. I think when the world returns to normal, they're not doing 2 nights. It's much easier to do NXT on Saturday, one long WrestleMania on Sunday, and the main event is what it is, and suck it up.
I mean, we've been spoiled last year, and we will be spoiled again this year. And again, whatever the drawbacks you want to say, whatever it may be, whether it's how the card shakes out and how it's structured, or any number of things, I very much prefer the 2-night system, just from the viewing perspective. It's not perfect by any means. I don't know. It is easier, right, to do the one night, to do that, and to say, oh, you've got to suck it up. I'm not going to be thrilled if that's the case. If we're sitting here a year from now, and it's going to be one night again.
Well, listen, if it's Texas, I think everything will be open. Everything's open now. They could run WrestleMania week now and do everything that they normally do now in Texas. So I'm sure that everything will be back to normal.
Oh, I mean, hey, we can hope. And who even knows what the world will be like a year from now?
I sure don't.
I don't. But to scale it back, great episode of SmackDown. We know
Fantastic.
We have a pretty good darn idea of the majority of the WrestleMania card at this point, and I'd expect even more matches to be added. But overall, though, I mean, the way that this unfolded last night between the triple threat match, finally getting action build for Bianca and Sasha, more good stuff from the tag division, getting the confirmation that we're going to see Owens and Zayn and Cesaro and Rollins and in their matches. Pretty darn good show, and I'll go for an 8. I think that's fair.
That's right where I am. Solid 8. Very good show. A lot of fun. Looking forward to the final 2 weeks. before WrestleMania, and it's going to be a mess, especially that last week, because there's going to be a lot to cover.
Yeah. Hey, at WrestleZone, we say we enjoy wrestling. WrestleMania week, you're gonna have as much, or if not more, wrestling than you can handle, because I think there's quite literally something every night, from Raw.
Right, like
Actually,
even if you don't follow the independents,
yeah,
there is something every night of the week.
every night. And then you've got the a 2-night NXT takeover as well. You've got for our AEW fans, AEW on Wednesday, SmackDown Friday, 2-night
Impact
WrestleMania.
on Thursdays starting on April 8th.
Correct. And I think the Hall of Fame is that week as well.
Yep, that's that
So,
Tuesday.
oh my gosh. All right. Mike Gordon giving the show an 8 as well. So, that's right where we fell as well. For a pretty good show. But yeah, WrestleMania week will be crazy, and we will definitely have you covered extensively here at WrestleZone every single night. All the content will be covered. I meant to say earlier in the show, as always, everything that we do here at WrestleZone available on any number of streaming platforms, whether it's YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, our Apple Podcasts, our Facebook page as well. Like, subscribe, whatever the show you support, we really appreciate it. And now, like whether it's the post show that we do here, or Raw on Mondays, or the wrestling wrap ups throughout the week, AEW on Wednesdays, the Dynamite dudes add to the D'Angelo brothers for AEW, and they also do WCW Written and any number of great interviews from Bill Pritchard, Dominic, and myself. Make sure to check them out. Lots of great stuff available on all of those platforms. Some more ratings here. Nando giving it an 8. Kevin Taylor with a 9. I think that's the highest I've seen in quite a while here. A 9 for SmackDown this week. Very good show. News-wise, not too much to cover. Several comments are wondering about Bayley, someone that at this point, and I think we've said it for a couple weeks now, there's always one person that you wouldn't expect kind of get left out in the cold WrestleMania season, and Bayley is very much that person this year, where she didn't get to the hosting gig of WrestleMania that went to Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. She's not in the title picture. She has not been in a non-title feud lately. So her WrestleMania status is very unclear at this point. Granted, we still got 2 weeks to do something with it. And as a couple comments were asking what we expect to see with Bayley. I think at this point, maybe you throw her with Carmella into the tag titles.
That's what I would do. Right now, I would book a gauntlet for the tag titles. You've got Bayley, Carmella, Lana, Naomi, Natty, and Tamina. The Riot Squad deserve to win those belts. There's obviously the champions. It's that get everybody on the card match, and I think the women, especially the 2 women that are champions, deserve to be on the card. And yeah.
So I think that would make sense, because otherwise I don't know what they do with her. Because like if you assume that they do that women's tag team title match, then that pretty much takes up like the rest of the SmackDown women's division by and large. So then you almost kind of have to put Bayley in there if you want to, assuming they want to get her on the card. So that'll make perfect sense to me. Even I guess we have seen your team with Carmella a couple of times on SmackDown this year, so maybe they run that back and they have that history there. Nando wondering if it could be a ladder match. I think that could be fun. Even if it's gauntlet match, like you said, Robert, or if
I don't want to see people unnecessarily thrown into a ladder match and have to take some spots. I think I'd pass.
Yeah. Mike Gordon saying maybe Bayley teams with Billie Kay. I think it means the Bella Twins could enter that match and potentially win. Not sure if that could happen.
Listen, the Bella Twins ain't coming back until at least maybe. Okay, don't run with what I'm saying here, but maybe what I would do is like a fall time return so they can build towards Mania, maybe even a Rumble return so they can build towards Mania. Nikki still has to get cleared, so they're not returning now.
Yeah. There's been some speculation, like they've made it pretty clear that they want to return at some point. I don't necessarily see that happening in WrestleMania. They supposedly will be there for the Hall of Fame ceremony, or for the Hall of Fame ceremony that week, and I think they said they will be at WrestleMania as always, in a normal WrestleMania, you see the Hall of Fame class get recognized. I expect that to be the case this year. I think on that note, Batista will not be inducted this year from scheduling conflicts. He won't be able to make it. So I guess he will be officially inducted later, and that's a bit of a bummer. I think he was, as someone that he was kind of one of the top guys when I first started watching wrestling. So I was looking forward to that. But obviously, a guy that's got his kind of schedule, filming commitments, and whatnot, perfectly understandable. Hopefully, that we get to see him inducted sooner rather than later. I think also just another, I guess the other big thing is Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair announced that she has COVID over this week.
I saw a comment saying people are spreading rumors. That ain't a rumor, pal. She announced that she has COVID.
They posted on Twitter, like directly from the source. That's why she's been absent. That's why she hadn't been on Raw. It was not because of Andrade and his release or anything like that.
Interesting timing, but
yeah, but
happenstance.
Sometimes life is stranger than fiction, so these things happen. Hopefully, I think she's had it at least for I think a week or maybe even 2 weeks now. So
Andrade said she'd be cleared by Friday.
And there's a rumor that, or at least a report that she was expected to be at SmackDown yesterday.
No, that was somebody being. All right, I can't say for sure, but I think that was somebody just being like, okay, well, if she's cleared on Friday, they'll put her on SmackDown. No, she's on Raw. I fully expect her to interrupt the contract signing, and for that match to be made a three-way as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I'd be all right with them just holding her out until after Mania, though.
I mean, true. I mean, I think there's something to be said on any given pay-per-view. If you don't really have a really defined role, like a logical role, that sometimes it might be better to just kind of be held out. But at the same time, we've been saying this is WrestleMania. This is the first show with live fans for over a year now. So if you're Charlotte, maybe you want to be on that card, even if it's not, a featured story. If it's not this heated rivalry that that at one point it looked like we would get between her and Asuka. I just don't know. So we've still got roughly 2 weeks. Maybe Robert, you just said that makes perfect sense for her to get involved in the Raw title match. That would not surprise me in the least. And at the same time, maybe they will hold her off. I just don't know. And I guess one last thought here about Andrade. Nando in the comments wondering if Andrade will be at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. He was not. Andrade was not at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. That was last night. I covered it for WrestleZone. Check it out. I'll be doing plenty more post-show coverage as well, with a feature and a podcast coverage of it. I thought I started to kind of buy into that speculation. That we might see Andrade.
I did as well, and then I remembered, oh yeah, they taped it last week. Never mind that. But I was starting to think, oh no, 90 days? I guess he'll show up tonight. I do want to tell that one thing.
Yeah.
I want to tell that one thing from Ring of Honor. Jonathan Gresham is the greatest wrestler in the world. He hit a suicide dive into a sleeper hold. What? That is the most unreal thing I've seen in a while. Gresham is good. Gresham versus Lee Moriarty should be a pure title match on Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor can get some good people in the fold, and I think it'll be a big year for them as well. Women's title tournament coming in the summer. Stay tuned to WrestleZone and specifically to Colin for all things Ring of Honor. So that's super exciting, and yeah, wrestling's looking good.
Yeah, I will say Ring of Honor is kind of my beat here. It's my kind of my responsibility to cover all things Ring of Honor because I love Ring of Honor. I've been really enjoying it ever since I started working here, and ever since they came back in the fall, they've been doing some great stuff. If you like wrestling, just period. If you like wrestling, you gotta watch Ring of Honor. Robert, you just pointed out Jonathan Gresham. He is bar none one of the best wrestlers in the world. Criminally underrated. You gotta check him out. Last night, triple threat match with Bandito, Flamita, and Ray Orris. Insanity.
I saw some dude hit. I believe it was Bandito caught one. There was in a Doomsday Device position. Caught the one dude in a flipping body slam and turned the Doomsday Device at the same time into a reverse Poison Rana. Yep. It was wrestling is fun, guys. It really is.
So I could go off for a whole nother hour, but gotta watch Ring of Honor. Great stuff. Very, very different than what you're going to see on SmackDown in a lot of ways. You're not, and on Raw, you're not going to see, the Fiend over and stuff like that.
You won't see the
necessarily.
Fiend do it, but there might be some dudes on Raw. I think Ricochet could pull it off.
Oh no, I just meant some of the storytelling. You're not going to
Oh
see,
no, yeah, you're not going to see a
people
lot
get
of
lit on
that.
fire. No, but wrestling is fun. That's what it boils down to. No matter what you're into, there's something there for you. And Robert, you mentioned even WrestleMania week, a big time for independent wrestling. So whether you're a W fan or not, whether you're an independent wrestling fan or not, AEW is doing great stuff. Ring of Honor is doing great stuff. Wrestling is fun, and this is kind of the most wonderful time of year. Whether it's all the excess of content WrestleMania week, or just any number of other things. Great stuff. And as always, we've got you covered here at WrestleZone. As I said, all the post shows we do for Raw, for NXT, AEW, this show, obviously. I do the Ring of Honor recap on the podcast, the WrestleZone Daily, about all the news stuff, keep you guys covered on that. In that sense, lots of great stuff. Always available in the wrestling world and always being covered here on WrestleZone. So make sure to check it out. It's a good time.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up. If you want to follow me on Twitter, again, it's in the lower third. Check out everything I'm doing across the world of wrestling, because we stay busy in the world of wrestling. But that's for us to do, for you to do. You each got to do one thing, and that's enjoy wrestling.
Indeed. Enjoy wrestling, everybody. Thank you for listening.